that's it. Whereas I prefer to suggest something and let the audience figure it out. The big difference between, we'll say, suspense and shock or surprise is that in order to get suspense, you provide the audience with a certain amount of information and leave the rest of it to their own imagination.
What's up, guys? I'm Jacob Suggs, and welcome back to another video. It's been a long time, been about a week, give or take, at the time that I'm recording this video, so that being said, there's a lot of things that I want to discuss and expect a lot more videos this week because I just had to take a break last week. It came to a point where I was like, I need to stop making videos for a little while because I feel like I'm just going overload, full blast, full speed, and I just need to slow down a little bit. I don't know if that's ever happened to you guys, I'm sure it has, but I felt like I needed to balance out making videos with other aspects of my life. So that being said, thankfully we're back at a time to where I feel comfortable speaking once again in front of a camera and can kind of get my full thoughts out without getting sidetracked and stuff like that. That being said, not too long ago was the 10th anniversary of one of my all-time favorite films, Cloverfield, which if you haven't seen it, you know that I'm a massive fan of because I talk about Cloverfield all the time on this channel, whether it be Cloverfield, 10 Cloverfield Lane, or the Cloverfield Paradox most recently. Now, there's a lot of things about this film that I enjoy, but although I usually talk about Cloverfield Paradox and 10 Cloverfield Lane, I feel like I haven't made an individual video just talking about why I love Cloverfield, so that's what I want to talk about today. In fact, I'd go as far to say that this is the Blair Witch Project for our generation, and it's that great, and the secrecy really helped Cloverfield stand out amongst the other films in the genre coming out at the time. What Matt Reeves and J.J. Abrams were able to accomplish on such a small budget and a string of clever viral marketing sites was honestly amazing, which led to the box office success that this movie has and Cloverfield franchise as we know it today. Now, I just want to mention a disclaimer, spoilers. If you have not seen Cloverfield, watch that movie, it's great, I love it, and then come back and watch this video to where I discuss pretty much my full thoughts on the movie. Cloverfield combines one genre with another to create something creative, original, and unique. The monster genre was kind of dead at the time, and found footage was basically at its peak. Found footage at the time was still a relatively new genre, only a few films kind of utilized it, like Paranormal Activity and stuff like that. In fact, the first Paranormal Activity movie actually came out the same year as Cloverfield did. By combining a dead genre with a relatively new one, Abrams and Reeves single-handedly not only revived a genre that was initially thought to be out of steam, but further solidified all of the possibilities that filmmakers could take with the found footage genre. I know a lot of people have argued that this film is kind of a letdown due to the monster not being a large amount of the screen time, but to be completely honest with you, that's what I think makes this movie so great and why it stands out in my mind as a really good film. To me, that's Cloverfield's biggest strength. It tells a big story in a small way, and since the film is shot on a video camera by one of the main characters, since we only see the monster when they record it, to me that makes the monster even scarier. I know that J.J. Abrams and other people have said this before, but I feel like not seeing the thing that we're supposed to be afraid of is partially what makes it so scary. I mean, for example, take Alien, one of my favorite films ever made. Part of the reason why the xenomorph is so scary in that movie is because sometimes we just hear it and we see the victims of it that it's killed aboard the Nostromo. So, I mean, to be honest with you, I feel like that's what makes it so scary, the fact that we barely see it. I mean, obviously, if you throw one of these big, scary monsters in front of the camera right away, it kind of takes down some of the intensity because we've already seen what this thing looks like, and since we already know what it looks like, it's just not going to be as scary because we know what to expect. With Cloverfield, it's not like that because we don't know what to expect because we've barely seen the monster. Once again, big story in a small way. This thing is giant, you can't miss it, yet we're not focusing solely on the monster because we're focusing so much on the characters. This is a found footage film that looks and even feels real, because for the majority of the movie, it feels as if we're right there with Hud and Beth and Rob and the rest of the main characters, as they're basically caught up in all of these events that are tied to one big singular event happening in New York. And another thing that makes this film so great is that each character feels vulnerable and real. In fact, the monster, the main selling point of the film, is kind of put on the back burner, and instead we're forced to see this attack through the eyes of several ordinary people just like you and me. They're not Superman, they're not invulnerable. Now, this could be a boring and weak element of the film. In fact, we see that time and time again in both horror movies, thriller movies, and monster movies, but each character stands out here, and since we know the stakes and the vulnerability of each one, it makes us care for them. So if a character dies or is injured, we feel that too. My main point here is that nobody in Cloverfield, not one character, feels like they're placed there just for cannon fodder. Each character feels like they're there because they have a purpose, and that's a massive positive that I can give to this movie. In fact, it's one of the main reasons as to why I keep going back to watch this film, because the characters are just so great to me. Like I said, when somebody's severely injured or dies in this movie, you feel that injury or you feel that death that all of the other characters are feeling. The monster might be scary and the main selling point of the film, but the fact that each character in this film feels real and is mortal and can die, now that's just horrifying. The movie's all about broken relationships coming together again. Whether it be Hud and Marlena, a relationship that develops in the midst of a disaster, or Rob and Beth, who are kinda having trouble in their relationship, but ultimately are on the same page by the end of the film. Well, they might be dead too. We aren't entirely sure what happens after the bridge collapses, but we do know by the end they have confessed their love for one another, and basically the relationship has been rekindled, whether or not they live or die. Not to mention the tragic irony that, in a way, both Hud and Marlena did end up in the same place together, just not where they expected and how they expected it to go through. I mean, just look at what happens to the character Marlena after she's attacked by a parasite from the monster's back, and also Hud's reaction to what happens to Marlena. Once again, spoilers, if you have not seen the film, don't watch this.
Wait a second, where are you taking her? Hold on a second, wait, oh my god, Marlena! Marlena, stop! Just wait a second, please, just wait Marlena! Marlena, hold on a second! Just wait let go of me, stop! Hold on,
Possibly the best scene in the entire film is Hud's death, which was actually added in last minute. I'm just gonna let you watch it for yourself because it's brilliant for two reasons, but before we get into that, I'm just gonna let you check it out because it might just be my favorite scene in the entire movie.
Oh! Oh no! Oh.
That scene is amazing because we've grown to know Hud throughout the entire film, and when he dies, it's like we're dying too. I mean, hear me out for a minute. He's been holding the camera for the majority of the time, so we've really been watching the attack and talking to others from his perspective, for the entire runtime of the movie. Like I said, in Cloverfield, nobody feels safe. In fact, everybody feels like they're in some kind of danger, whether it be the giant monster attacking the city, the parasites, or even the military kind of intruding into the city in order to, attack this monster and potentially bring it down. This scene is also brilliant because it's also up close and personal and gives us the first real view that we've seen of the Cloverfield monster. In fact, it's not even at night anymore, it's in broad daylight when we actually are supposed to feel safe. I know that sounded weird, but I mean, we just feel safer in the daylight than we do at night. Since the majority of the film takes place at night, the fact that we're seeing the monster for the first time in broad daylight is kind of ironic. But that scene works for these two key reasons, and it's a scene that doesn't have to be in the film by any means, but to be perfectly honest with you, I'm glad that they kept it in and decided to add it in last minute. This movie is just so amazing because it tells a big story in a small way, and you don't really see that a lot today. We're living in a world to where everybody's focused on the next big, gigantic blockbuster coming out, but sometimes those smaller films that are released to theaters can be just as captivating. And I feel like Cloverfield proved that, and set forth a new era for the found footage genre. I mean, there's a lot of films that are found footage that kind of try to rip off Cloverfield, so to be honest with you, you can definitely see the impact there. I mean, the movie's kind of iconic by this point. That being said, if you haven't seen any of these movies, I highly recommend them. However, Cloverfield might just be my personal favorite out of all of them because just of everything in this movie. Just from a technical standpoint, it's amazing. From a narrative standpoint, I absolutely love it. And the ARG that accompanied this movie was just as phenomenal too. That being said, what do you think of Cloverfield? Do you love it? Do you not like it? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. And as always, I'm Frame by Frame. Remember the name. Please like, comment, and subscribe. And I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye, guys.